My name is Daniel. I am 27 years old. For most of my life, I was ashamed of my mother. The strange thing is, she was the bravest person I ever knew. Today, I work as a construction engineer. Every day, I stand on busy construction sites and watch buildings rise from the ground. People respect my job. They shake my hand and call me a successful man. But when I was younger, my life felt very different. I grew up in a small apartment with my mother. It was quiet and simple. We did not have much money, but she always tried to take care of me. During the day, she stayed home and rested. But every evening when the city lights turned on, she put on her old uniform and left for work. She worked the night shift. She cleaned the streets while most people were sleeping. Sometimes she came home very late. Her steps were slow. Her hands were tired. And for many years, I wished people would never see what she did. When I was a child, my mother left home every night at 9 o'clock. I remember hearing the door close softly behind her. Our apartment was small, so every sound felt close. She wore the same orange uniform every night. The color was bright, but the fabric looked worn, and her gloves were often torn from work. Her job was simple. She cleaned the streets while most people were sleeping. When I was very young, I did not think much about it. To me, it was just my mother's job. But as I grew older, I began to notice things. During the day, people walked past her without looking. It was like she was invisible. But at night, things were different. Some people looked down on her. A few even laughed when they saw her working. I remember seeing young men throw trash near her feet. They waited. They watched while she bent down to pick it up. Once, a man kicked an empty bottle toward her. Another time, someone stood nearby and filmed her with a phone, but my mother never shouted at them. She never told them to stop. She said nothing. She only picked up the trash from the ground and carried on working. At home, she was different. She always spoke to me gently. Before leaving for work, she often said the same words. Study hard. She told me, your life will be different. When I was younger, I believed her completely. I thought hard work could change everything. But when I became a teenager, something inside me began to change. I started to notice what other people thought. And little by little, I began to feel ashamed of the job my mother did every night. When I was in 10th grade, my classmates began asking questions about my family. It started with small talk during lunch. Someone asked, "Where does your mom work?" I always gave the same answer. I kept my voice calm and simple. She works for the city. That was all I said. I never told them the truth. I never told them that my mother cleaned the streets at night. One night, something happened that I could not forget. I was walking home when I saw my mother working under a streetlight. A group of young men stood nearby. They were laughing loudly. One of them threw trash on the ground near her feet. They waited. They watched her bend down and pick it up. Another man kicked a bottle across the street. The bottle hit her shoulder with a dull sound. My body felt stiff. I stood there for a moment. She did not respond. She kept her head down and carried on working slowly, quietly. I felt heat in my face. My heart dropped. Before anyone noticed me, I turned away and walked home. I did not want them to see me. For a while after that, life felt normal again. I focused on school, my grades were good, my teachers liked me. Some even said I had a bright future. Sometimes I thought maybe the truth would stay hidden. Maybe my classmates would never find out about my mother's job. Maybe everything would be fine. But one afternoon during lunch break, everything changed. A boy held up his phone and called out across the table, "Hey, isn't this your mom?" My hands went cold. My legs felt heavy. I leaned closer and looked at the screen. My heart dropped again. The video showed my mother bending down to pick up trash. People around her were laughing and pointing. Someone zoomed in on her face. My classmates looked at me. Their eyes moved from the screen to my face. One of them asked quietly, "Your mom is a street cleaner?" No one laughed this time. The air felt heavy. I felt every pair of eyes on me. That night when I went home, anger followed me through the door. My breathing became shallow. My hands were shaking. My mother stood near the table, still wearing her old gloves from work. I could not stop myself. The words came out fast and sharp. "Why can't you get a better job?" My voice sounded louder than I expected. No one spoke. My mother froze for a moment. She looked down at her hands. Those same torn gloves were still on her fingers. She did not argue. She did not shout. She said nothing. After that night, life returned to its quiet rhythm. Every evening, she left for work. Same street, same uniform, same slow steps under the streetlights. Days passed like this, but one night something happened on that dark street. Something that would change everything for both of us. A few weeks after our fight, something happened on that same street. It was another quiet night in the city. The streets were dark, and most people were already inside their homes. My mother was sweeping the sidewalk as usual. She moved slowly along the sidewalk with her broom and trash cart. The streetlights cast long shadows on the empty road. That was when she noticed a man sitting on the sidewalk near the corner. At first, she thought he might be drunk, but when she walked closer, she saw something was wrong. The man was holding his side. There was blood on his shirt. His face looked pale and tired. He had been robbed. Some people walked past him on the sidewalk. They glanced at him for a second and kept walking. No one stopped. No one asked if he was okay. But my mother stopped. She put down her broom and walked over to him. She gave him a small bottle of water from her bag. Then she used a clean cloth to wipe the blood from his face. Her movements were slow and careful. The man looked at her with tired eyes. His voice was weak when he spoke. "Thank you. You don't have to stay." My mother shook her head gently. "It's all right," she said. "You're hurt. I'll stay until help comes." She stayed there beside him under the streetlight until he could call for help. A few days later, the same man returned to that street. He looked around until he saw my mother again, pushing her cart and cleaning the sidewalk. He walked toward her and stopped beside her broom. "I've been looking for you," he said quietly. He took out an envelope and held it toward her. "Please take this. Just a small thank you." My mother looked at the envelope and shook her head. "No," she said softly. You don't have to do that. The man tried again and gently pushed the envelope toward her hand. You helped me that night. The least I can do is this. But my mother pushed it back to him. Really? Keep it, she said. I just did what anyone should do. The man stood there for a moment, unsure what to say. Then my mother added one more thing before returning to her work. If you really want to thank me, help someone else someday. The man nodded slowly. He placed the envelope back into his pocket and walked away, but he never forgot the woman working under that quiet streetlight. 10 years passed. I studied hard, just like my mother always told me. After college, I became a construction engineer. My days were filled with blueprints, steel frames, and tall buildings rising into the sky. By coincidence, I joined a large construction company in the city. I did not know much about the owner at the time. To me, it was simply a good job and a chance to build a better life. That year, I worked harder than ever. I stayed late at the office. I double-checked every design. When the quarterly results were announced, my name was called as the top engineer of the quarter. During the small awards ceremony, the company director personally handed me the certificate. I walked to the front of the room and shook his hand. As he looked down at the certificate, his eyes stopped on my last name. Then he slowly looked up at my face. For a brief moment, he paused. His expression changed slightly, as if he was searching for a memory. Later that afternoon, his secretary called me. She said the director wanted to see me in his office. A cold feeling ran through my fingers as I walked down the hallway. When I entered the office, the director looked at me carefully. He did not speak right away. For a few seconds, the silence felt heavy. Then he asked a simple question. Did your mother work night shifts? My heart stopped. I felt a tight knot in my chest. For a moment, I did not know what to say. I was afraid he had discovered something embarrassing about my past. But then he smiled gently. His voice was calm when he spoke again. Your mother helped me on the worst night of my life. I blinked in surprise. The tension slowly left my shoulders. He continued telling the story about the night he was robbed and left bleeding on the sidewalk. He described the quiet woman who stayed beside him under the streetlight, the woman who gave him water and refused his money. As he spoke, his voice carried deep respect. For the first time in many years, I heard someone talk about my mother that way. My throat felt tight. I looked down at my hands, and slowly something inside me began to change. The director slowly told me the whole story. His voice was calm, but every word stayed in my mind. That night, he had been robbed on a dark street. The thieves took his phone and his wallet. They hit him and left him there on the sidewalk. He was injured and bleeding. Cars passed. People walked by, but no one stopped. No one wanted to get involved. Then he looked at me and said quietly, "Only one person stopped. Your mother." I felt my chest tighten. I could almost see the scene in my mind. The dark street, the streetlight above them. My mother standing there in her old orange uniform, holding her broom. The director continued speaking. He told me how she gave him water, how she cleaned the blood from his face, and how she stayed beside him until help came. Then he said something I never expected. He smiled slightly and said, "She refused my money." I lowered my eyes. My hands felt heavy on my lap. For years, I tried to hide the truth about her work. I was afraid people would laugh at me. But in that moment, I understood something painful. My mother had done something I never had the courage to do. She helped someone without asking for anything in return. No reward, no praise, just kindness. Everyone fell silent. I could hear my own breathing. I thought about the night I shouted at her, the anger in my voice, the hurt in her eyes. Those words came back to me again and again, and suddenly I felt very small. A few weeks later, our company held the year-end celebration. It was a special event for the employees who performed well that year. The company allowed us to bring our parents to the party. For many years, I avoided this event. I always found an excuse. I said I was busy. I said my family could not come. The truth was simple. I was afraid. I did not want people to ask about my mother. But this time, something felt different inside me. I went home one evening and asked her quietly if she wanted to come with me. She looked surprised at first. Then she smiled and nodded. On the night of the celebration, she wore a simple dress. It was not expensive, but she looked neat and careful. I could see she felt nervous. Her hands stayed close to her bag, and she looked around the large room with quiet curiosity. During the dinner, the director walked to the stage to give a speech. The voices slowly faded as everyone listened. Then he said something that made my heart beat faster. 10 years ago, someone helped me on the worst night of my life, he said. Everyone else walked away, but one person stopped. A deep silence spread across the hall. Then he continued speaking. She was working the night shift, cleaning the streets. I felt my breath slow. My mother sat beside me, still listening without understanding. The director added one more sentence. And she refused the money I tried to give her. People began looking around the room, wondering who he meant. Then the director looked directly toward our table. Many eyes followed his gaze. Suddenly, people were looking at us. My mother looked confused and turned slightly toward me. Before she could say anything, I stood up and wrapped my arms around her. My arms were still around my mother when everything else faded away. I could feel her small frame against me. For a moment, I could not speak. My throat felt tight and my chest rose and fell slowly. Then the words finally came out. My voice shook. I used to be ashamed of what you did. My hands trembled slightly as I held her shoulders. Tears filled my eyes, and the bright lights of the hall blurred in front of me. I took a breath and continued. Now I know I should have been proud. The room was quiet. I could feel people watching. But for the first time, I did not care. My mother looked up at me with the same calm eyes I remembered from my childhood. She smiled softly, the way she always did after a long night of work. Slowly, she raised her hand and touched my shoulder. Her touch was gentle and steady. It was just my job, she said quietly. Her voice was simple, almost casual, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Then she added one more sentence. I only wanted you to have a better life." Her words were soft, but they carried years of sacrifice inside them. For a moment, I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The heavy feeling in my chest slowly changed into something warm. I looked around the room again. This time, I stood straighter beside her. For the first time in many years, I felt proud to stand next to my mother. Not ashamed, proud. Looking back now, I understand something I could not see when I was young. When I was a teenager, I thought respect came from success. I believed people would only value you if your job looked important. That was why I felt ashamed of my mother's work. But I see things differently now. My mother never tried to impress anyone. She never asked for recognition. Night after night, she simply went out into the dark streets and did her job. Many people ignored her. Some even laughed at her. Still, she kept doing the same thing. And when someone needed help on that lonely street, she did not walk away like everyone else. She stayed, she helped, and she expected nothing in return. For many years, I thought I needed to escape the life she lived. I thought success meant leaving that world behind. But today, when I remember those nights, I understand something much more important. The person I once tried to hide from the world is the person I admire the most. This story reflects something very common in modern life. People often judge others by their job, their money, or their social position. It happens in schools, in workplaces, and even in daily conversations. When you see someone doing a simple job, it is easy to make a quick judgment. But this story reminds you that a person's true value is not measured by their title or income. It is measured by how they treat other people. The mother in this story was not rich. She was not famous. Most people did not even notice her. She worked quietly in the empty streets while the city slept. But when a stranger was hurt and left alone, she stopped to help. She gave her time, her care, and her attention. She did something many others did not do that night. She helped without asking for anything in return. In your own life, you will meet people from many different backgrounds. Some may have simple jobs, some may live quiet lives that others overlook. But it is important not to judge too quickly. Kindness does not need a job title. It does not need recognition. It only needs a heart that cares about other people. When you look at the world with that mindset, you begin to see people differently. Respect grows, empathy grows, and small acts of kindness become more visible. This is peak. We believe stories teach more than language. They teach how to see people with respect and kindness. Stay peak. Have you ever felt ashamed of someone in your life and later realized you were wrong? Maybe it was a parent. Maybe it was a friend. Sometimes we only understand people after many years. If this story made you think about someone important in your life, take a moment and remember them today. We would love to hear your thoughts. Tell us in the comments or simply write, "Respect." If you believe every honest job deserves dignity and appreciation, small words can show big respect. If this story touched your heart or made you see people differently, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to Learn English by Stories. Your support helps this community grow and allows us to share more meaningful stories with learners around the world. Thank you for spending your time with this story today. See you in the next story.